Hello, I'm just finishing a little picture of Laura Whitmore, who's the presenter, who's the new presenter of Love Island, which is starting again in the next week or so, and there's a certain amount of publicity about it at the moment. Some people like her, some people don't like her. You know, I don't really know. Her partner is the person who does the voices, the commentary. So I suppose she sort of keeps it in the family. But the real issue is there's some press releases yesterday and today saying that the new series of Love Island will be accompanied by a sort of revamped support, a little bit more psychological support for the participants. Well, I feel that's not quite enough. I feel, it's certainly in line with the Ofcom regulations, but those regulations were made after a digital media and sport committee meeting by the government, which broke up in 2019. It had started because of the suicide on the Jeremy Kyle show, and it was supposed to be wide-ranging. It took evidence from four people. I don't consider that wide-ranging, in the same afternoon. Two people from Love Island and two people from the Jeremy Kyle show. This is very much a sticking plaster, and it should have continued, but it was never reconvened. And on the basis of what they'd already heard, they put out this new Ofcom guidance, the new regulations. But those regulations are exactly what was in place when I did the circle. So they aren't something new, they're simply putting into concrete what was already accepted practice. Now, psychiatry is very useful for reality TV. Psychiatrists are used as part of the casting process. And then, in my experience, those same psychiatrists are there to provide support afterwards. I'm not sure that's an entirely credible way of managing this process. But I have called repeatedly for a more professional approach to reality TV. I think people who are performing on reality TV should have proper support. They should have theatrical management, theatrical agents before they're on the show, during the show, and after the show. They should have, should they choose to have it, the option of union representation. This isn't available. So you've got 30% of our scheduled TV broadcasting is taken up with reality TV, and these people on those programs are not represented at all. Maybe they aren't even considered to be working. They're not paid a proper fee. They're often paid a thing called a displacement fee, which is a derisory amount of money per day to cover what I'm not really sure what it's supposed to cover, but it's certainly not a performance fee. And yet these people are performing. I know this, I've been there. And then they're placed under onerous contracts, which can last many months, even years, after the show has finished recording, tying people up. All of this needs to change. We need to be more professional. We need to make sure that we're more realistic and responsible, and we need to ensure that the audience watching these shows and enjoying them is confident that they're not watching people being exploited. And we already know there's this catalogue of suicides that has followed reality TV. In my count, 45, 46, 47 people have died and are connected to the reality TV phenomenon. I don't see a serious attempt to stop that. Throwing a few more hours of psychiatry is not the answer, though it is helpful, but it's not the answer. Now, something extraordinary hit me yesterday. Did you know that about 25, 26, 27,000 people apply to study in Oxford and Cambridge every year? And in the last figures for Love Island, 25,000 people applied to that. So I suppose if somebody's filling out their UCAS application form for university, they can think to themselves, ooh, shall I go to Oxford or Cambridge or Love Island? Well, I'm afraid if you apply to be on Love Island, it's stacked against you, because at least 50% of the performers on that show, as on any reality TV show, have been approached by the producers. They're not from that pool of people who applied to be on the show. The producers are not out to create a love match, to arrange a wedding, to get people into the off to the altar or the synagogue or the mosque. They're not out for that. They're out to make good, gripping TV. Now, the fact that I watched the last series and managed to get through to episode 4 before I gave up, this is my problem. And I've spoken to people who've been on the show, and what I've learned is quite fascinating. Many of the conversations that take place, which I would find interesting, like conversations about politics and about careers and about people's aspirations and futures, these are the conversations which take place in private and are of no interest to the production. But should people start mentioning relationships, they're told to stop the conversation. They're wheeled outside to beside the pool, given a tequila or whatever, and made to renew the conversation in some sort of scantily clad attire on the edge of a bathing pool. This is what the show is about. These things are staged, these are managed, and in my opinion, slightly dull. But on the other hand, I celebrate the fact that here we've got a very popular program that's coming back. Our entertainment industry is gearing up again as we emerge from COVID. So this is all to be celebrated, but at the same time, we must continue the pressure. We must continue saying reality TV needs to be properly regulated. And if it's not properly regulated, there will continue to be mental health problems and further suicides, and responsibility for that must really fall on the shoulders of the Secretary of State for Culture and on the shoulders of the producers who are not paying attention to what is being said. And on that subject, I would urge the Secretary General of the Actors Union Equity to pay attention to this, because if these people are taking up 30% of our scheduled viewing, and these people are performing, they should be properly represented. Now, Equity was set up in the late 1930s in Britain, in imitation of a similar union in the United States. But in fact, the original Actors Union was a thing called the Variety Artists Federation, which was set up in 1907. And Mary Lloyd was one of the, she's the lady with, my old man says follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. She was that lady. And she was I think she was a fearsome individual. And there was a strike called because it was the feeling that many performers, not the big names, but the people who made up the bill each night, the jugglers, the various variety turns, were not being properly paid and were being heavily exploited. They were having to perform 2, 3, 4 times a day on very, very small payouts. And the Variety Artists Federation held management to order, and they brought them to boot, and they changed the industry. Now, the Variety Artists Federation recognised that although there were some big stars who did earn enough money to pay a decent amount to the union, many simply couldn't. And there was a sliding scale that operated. But also the principle that anybody who was performing, anybody who was entertaining, should be represented because the union was there to support the workers. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who is performing should be a member of a union. Far from it. But I am saying that that union representation should be available. And if Equity does not want to make that available, and the Secretary General of Equity is very reluctant at the moment, he's a new appointment, he's quite young, and certainly my conversations with him haven't gone very far. But I intend to work from the inside. I intend to work from Equity to try and change the way people think. This may not be a quick fix, but in the end, we have to make sure that as an audience, when we are watching the telly, when we are sitting in the theatres, whenever we are being entertained, we need to make sure that we are not being exploited, the actors are not being, the performers are not being exploited. So, do by all means subscribe and press the bell, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.